Hey, it's Tim with the University of Vinyl. Thanks again for tuning in again today. I'm going to continue with my ongoing series called The Crown Jewels. I am highlighting 50 of the best sounding records that I currently have in my collection. I will drop the episode number here. I've lost count. I think I'm on number 5. But stay tuned. I'm going to be dropping these videos throughout this year. 50 of the top records in my collection as far as sound quality is concerned. When we talk about sound quality, a lot of people will when we talk about sound quality, a lot of people will just make an assumption, oh, he's just going to talk about those audiophile records, those clinical, detailed, transparent records. Yes, I will be featuring some of those, but I also am going to feature some gritty, original pressings. I don't want to wade into this kind of the artist intent theory out there that's currently kind of making the rounds in the vinyl community. Case in point, the television original pressing, and then the reissue that came out recently, the Rhino Hi-Fi version of television's Marquee Moon record. You could also make an interesting comparison. I just recently did a 3-record shootout on Big Star's Radio City. That was a gritty, overdriven original recording that has been kind of smoothed out with the most recent reissue done by Kraft a few years ago that is readily available now. That one was cut by Jeff Powell. The original, though, is a very, very rare record, hard to find. Check out my most recent video. Charles from Driver 8 Records in Fort Collins recently found in a collection an original of that record, and also the follow-up third. Amazing to find those things in near mint condition. Anyway, we took a deep dive on Radio City by Big Star, and I am totally digressing here, but let's go back and talk about the 5th record that I'm going to feature in this series, and that is R.E.M's Chronic Town. Now, this is an EP, a 5-song EP that came out in August of 1982. It was produced by Mitch Easter. Mitch Easter was an adjacent Mitch Easter was introduced to R.E.M. by another person that you may know in the kind of R.E.M. Circles, and that's Peter Holsapple. Peter Holsapple actually went on and was the second guitarist on the Green Tour, and I think he backed up on another tour as well. But Peter Holsapple originally introduced Mitch Easter to R.E.M. And R.E.M. came down to Mitch Easter's drive-in studio in October of 1981. They spent a long weekend there, basically, and they did some recording for what would eventually become Chronic Town. They came back to drive-in studios in June of '82 because IRS Records had signed R.E.M. in the meantime. They were going to put out this EP on an indie label, Hibtone, but they were signed in the interim period by IRS Records. Miles Copeland had heard Wolves Lower, which is the lead song on the EP. He thought the tempo was too fast. And in talking with the band, they kind of agreed. Michael Stipe thought, the vocal was sounding a little breathless, out of breath. And they all reconvened back in Winston-Salem, North Carolina in June of '82, recut Wolves Lower, which has kind of got a much slower pace. You can actually hear that song on some of the retrospective comps that have come out over the last 10 years, and I think it's somewhere on YouTube as well if you want to hear the original fast version of Wolves Lower. I love this record. It's a true band effort. Of course, Michael Stipe, his vocals were amazing back in the day, somewhat unintelligible. They would even become more so on the first album, Murmur, which was released in '83, and Mitch Easter produced that as well, co-produced by Don Dixon. Maybe we should show the EP while we're at it. I love this cover art. This is actually an '81 repress, and it's on the IRS label. The original pressings had the gargoyle on the actual label, and I am trying to find one of those as we speak. I've got two of the exact same pressings. This is the Electrosound pressing, and when you hold this record up to light, you will notice that it's translucent. It's kind of a bronze, dark brown, translucent color. Typically, reason for that is Electrosound were known for their pressings using a higher quality vinyl compound, kind of like a virgin vinyl. They weren't branded as Qui-X2 at that point in time, but a lot of people rave about this pressing. I have not heard the original first press. I'd like to hear that, but I love the mix on this record. I love the urgency. Bill Berry's drum sounds are recorded incredibly well, and you know, going back to Wolves Lower, one of the stars of that song is definitely Peter Buck's intricate arpeggios done on a Rickenbacker, and you're getting that kind of signature early R.E.M. sound right there on Wolves Lower. Also, another co-star, of course, is Mike Mills and his kind of second vocal on that song, and he was assisted by Bill Berry. So you've got Mills and Bill Berry on backing vocals. Lead vocal, of course, is Michael Stipe. Let's talk just a little bit about Drive-In Studios. So Drive-In Studios was Mitch Easter's first studio, and he basically cobbled together the best gear that he could afford, a couple tape machines. I think he had a rudimentary synthesizer, and he set that up in his parents' garage. So it was a 1949 kind of nondescript long ranch style home on the outskirts of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And the cool thing is you've got the garage on one end of the house, and then kind of the living room, the kitchen, the bedrooms are on the opposite side. So he thought this is perfect. He talked his parents into setting up in the garage. That garage had already been kind of converted into a one-car garage. The second half of the garage was going to be like a utility room or a children's bedroom. So Easter set up all of his equipment in that utility area of the garage, the kind of finished portion, and the band set up in the actual single bay garage as it was at that point in time. Now, Mitch Easter was a recording nerd, and he was listening to, famously, I think in interviews he talks about the Low album from David Bowie. He was listening to Kraftwerk. So R.E.M. came in here. They were interested, they were curious, and they took opinions on board. So they really enjoyed working with Easter. And what we got from that is kind of a band that was kind of hearkening back to the Byrds and the Beatles, other influences. But then you got these kind of then you got a little bit of experimental recording thrown in thanks to the influence from Mitch Easter, and you have a really unique record, this 5-song EP, and it really kind of put R.E.M. on the map. Now, famously, they had enough songs where they could have done an album, but based on the success of Radio Free Europe that Mitch Easter also produced the previous year, they just wanted to kind of go incrementally, one step at a time, and they decided to do a 5-song EP. The next year, Murmur came out, and we got the full-blown album. They actually upgraded and moved into a studio not too far away in Charlotte, but they retained Dixon. They retained Mitch Easter and his buddy Don Dixon, and that is a fantastic sounding record as well. But Want to give props to Chronic Town. It's a great sounding record, at least to my ears. You can hear a band finding its way and really leaning into different recording techniques. You know, Mitch Easter also had Michael Stipe recorded out in the lawn for a couple tracks here, and I think he's said in interviews that you can actually hear crickets in the background. So it's a great record. It is really the beginning of R.E.M. as we knew them at that point in time, you know, following up on the success of Radio Free Europe. Make sure you have this in your collection. They're pretty easy to find. Like I said, I have an early repress and it sounds amazing. I am interested in finding the original with that gargoyle label. But there you have it. That is, I think, number 5 in my series called The Crown Jewels, the best sounding records in my collection. Stay tuned for more to come throughout the year. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll catch you soon.